Siltforge has been founded, but it's teetering on an edge. Food and water stores are running thin, colony resources are being mismanaged, and the threat of drought continues to loom, not just because all their food might dry up, but because a drought will stop production of cassava fermenting, likely dooming the colony to an early demise. Rhazin, however, is not willing to let his dreams die. He institutes harsh rules, limiting breeding and demanding the farmers of Siltforge focus on less popular kohlrabies, much to the detriment of his citizens' happiness. But keeping the colony alive is not the only goal Rhazin has, for he has his eyes set on a different prize. Looming over the colony is a massive skyscraper of scrap metal ripe for the taking. Today, we continue to make Rhazin's dreams a reality by clamping down on the inefficiencies from last episode, before moving on to expanding our industry into gears and metal production? This early? Yes, really. Welcome back to Siltforge. Now, as we saw in that intro, there are a couple things we gotta take care of right off the bat. First of all, I don't actually want my beavers harvesting cassava, or focusing on cassava. I want them focusing on kohlrabies right now. And I also want this one to be filled. So with one prioritizing planting and the other prioritizing harvesting on kohlrabies, I believe we should be put in a much better spot than when we're jumping back and forth between kohlrabi and cassava. So the other thing we need to do is we actually need to pause 2 of these breeding pods. What we will find is that a breeding pod, a single breeding pod, ends up supporting about 10 beavers. The only thing I do want to do, this one is probably close enough, but I want to wait until this breeding progress bar is a bit further along. Because if we pause them while they are low like this, when we turn them on, they need to keep going through this progress bar. If we were to pause it now, or really when it gets closer, but now is good enough, then if we get in a situation where we need more beavers desperately, we can just tick this on and it'll finish the breeding. And I think with 2 water and 2 berries, it'll just finish from that position. Now, I do have one more thing I want to do, because I didn't think about it at the time, but we don't need all these birch trees. We did before, and they're only 25% now. I am going to replace all of these dead birch trees, and I'm going to replace them pine trees. They're there. Pine trees will give us 2 logs for 12 days compared to the 1 log for 9 days that birch gives us. So it is only an increase of 30% when it comes to how many days it takes, but it doubles the amount of logs that we get. The other benefit of doing it this way, where we're using pine trees instead of birch trees, is going to be that eventually we can get pine resin. That's not our biggest concern at the moment, but I do want to move towards production in this city a lot quicker than I did in Teutopolis, so I want to get that out of the way now. The only downside is going to come if we do get an early bad tide. It is going to mean that these pines die, but if we get an early bad tide, it's going to cause a lot more issues than just killing pine trees, so now, what I do want to get started is our metal production. Now, it may seem early to do this, and it is, but I think that we can jumpstart quite a bit of this colony by getting metal now. Particularly with the Iron Teeth, a lot of their food sources benefit from rushing metal early. And we have a nearby giant source of metal, so I am just going to start collecting it and refining it. So with this area up here complete, we are just going to go down to metal, and we're going to have to unlock the scavenger flag, which is going to be basically all of our science points at the moment. We're just going to put that there. And one of our beavers, good old Jaryaya, is going to start collecting metal and putting it here. Now, obviously, what we're going to want to do is we are going to want to build a warehouse, a industrial pile for scrap metal. And with that out of the way, it is time to move on to building our metal processing. Now, this is going to be our biggest project. So we're going to have a couple issues here. Number one, we are going to need a lot more research points before we can actually unlock the smelter. But that'll come with time. We are actually going to have 2 additional issues before we can build this smelter. Number one, a single smelter takes 200 horsepower. Our current setup with these 3 compact water wheels only generates 190 horsepower. So we're going to have to think about how we want to expand our power here. Second of all, a single smelter takes 20 gears. We do not have gear set up yet, which is going to take another 100 research points. So obviously, the first thing I should probably do is set up another researcher. But an additional complication beyond just how we generate enough power is going to be twofold. It's going to be the limited space we have over in this area in general, but also because the way that we have built this area, we have fully locked these buildings in and this power in with this path. So to get power from these buildings across, we are going to need to sever the path. And then we are going to build a tiny bridge over here, and we are going to stick a single power shaft under it. Now, I don't know if this is going to go directly into the building currently. Either way, that's going to get it out from underneath where this path is. And now that we've got this power transferred under the path, and we've got enough science points to buy a gear workshop, it's time to consider what the best way to generate power here would be. So while we could just take these compact water wheels and slap them down all the way across this river here, that will ultimately just prove to be a waste of wood that is not actually going to generate us the highest amount of power that we can here. Now, unfortunately, the solution that I have found that does generate the most amount of power is going to require demolishing the 2 closest water wheels on this side. To start with this, I'm going to build a staircase down, and judging by the fact that we don't have any Badwater contamination on this fertile land over here, they should be able to just walk in this water. We've got a drought coming up. I'm not going to risk it. We will just wait for that drought. And with that drought starting, I'm going to pull beavers to work as builders. We will demolish these, and then we are going to need to unlock levees. Now we are going to put levees here, and then obviously connect up these power wheels. And then what I have found works the best in this spot, we're going to do 5. And then we are going to just cut that off over there. And then the setup, when it is done, should be generating somewhere between 800 and 1,000 horsepower. And since they're finishing that up, let us just go ahead and unlock our gear workshop and have them start building that right there. And now with the drought over, our wheel should start turning, and we will see that we are generating above 800 and below 1,000 horsepower, with a little bit of fluctuation because this is Timberborn water, but we are getting quite a bit of flow out of this. Far more horsepower than our system currently demands. And even though it is not running right now because we do not have a worker, we're not going to build a gear storage at the moment. All we want gears for is going to be things that we are currently building. We don't want them to over-generate gears. Now, what we did see during that drought is that without these water pumps running, we are teetering on the edge of not having enough water. So I've destroyed some of these kohlrabis, and I'm going to build another water pump here. But what's going to become apparent if we end up needing even more water than we currently do is that we don't have enough farmland for the water capacity that we're going to need. So in the next episode, we will be expanding our farmland over here. I'm not doing that now, though. And it looks like we're going to just kind of hover at this 22 mark. Realistically, I could build a row house here, which would hold 5 beavers. We're not going to sit at 25 beavers, so I'm just going to build us an entirely new barrack. And then that'll be that. And then with 396 science points, I think it is time for us to come down here. It's going to be more planks than we have, more gears than we have, and less scrap metal than we have. But I am going to unlock the smelter. I'm going to build it right down here. I'm also going to build a tiny warehouse for scrap. That's wrong. It should be a pile for scrap. And then I am also going to build a large pile for blocks. And then one small other thing I want to get done. I'm going to unlock and build another medium tank to store water. And hopefully that'll solve whatever lingering water issues we had before. And since it's the middle of a drought and there's not much else to do, there is one thing I want to get going before the end of this episode. So over here, eventually, we're going to want to have a floodgate system up here so that at the very least we can expel bad water down this channel when a bad tide hits, so that it does not eliminate our whole river we've got going here. So I'm going to set this to get started, hopefully as cheaply as we can. So that's one half. But I also, since we're going to need platforms anyway crossing this span, I figure we may as well use this as another bridge across, so that they will have the opportunity to go either this way or this way to get across. Maybe one day there will be a bridge right down the middle. But for now, preempting this bridge across, I think, is our smartest bet. So we have enough research points. I'm going to unlock a triple platform because, like always, I never unlock the double. I only unlock the triple and the single. I'm going to build that across. We're going to build some stairs down. So with that, this whole area over here is still not going to be green, but it will at the very least be a much shorter journey for those beavers to make if they're going up to this end. And it'll be the same amount if they're going over to that end. And with that, our smelter is done, our medium water tank is done, and our attempt to join the two sides of Siltforge together from either side in a sort of pincer maneuver is going quite well. As always, if you've enjoyed this episode of Siltforge and want to see more, consider subscribing. I've seen the analytics. A lot of you are returning viewers to this channel, and there's no guarantee that future episodes will make it to you if you don't. If you've noticed me doing something absolutely stupid, like maybe repeatedly mispronouncing a vegetable in the video, don't forget to tell me in the comments down below. And, to wrap us up, with the sun rising, Rhazin looks at that which he has wrought. the unmistakable smell of industry brought to Siltforge. But as he scans the horizon, he notices something in the distance, poking out from across the river. Something he did not approve. As Rhazin goes to investigate, Siltforge presses forward.